Did you know that reading books into your 70s and 80s has been found to delay cognitive decline and keep Alzheimer's and dementia at bay? Hi, you're listening to Curing Curiosity. I'm your host, Christopher, and my guest this week is a dear friend of mine from high school who enjoys this topic very much. My friend Gerardo. How are you doing today, Gerardo?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris. Thank you for having me here.
No problem, Gerardo. So, our topic this week that we will be discussing is the importance of reading. Now, we all know that reading will expand your vocabulary, opening you up to new words that then you can use in writing and conversations, and it will also teach you new things. But what else can it do?
Well, first off, reading can stimulate the mind and thus make it stronger. You
Mm-hmm.
see, imagine your brain is like a muscle, Christopher, right?
Right.
And that muscle is constantly flexing when you're reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's
Yes.
constantly flexing, it becomes stronger. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, you're building it up to become even stronger by reading.
Indeed.
Another thing that reading can do is make you more empathetic.
Yes, it could.
Have you ever read a very sad book, Christopher?
Not that I can remember. No, Gerardo, have you?
Well, I've read a few books, and sometimes a character is placed in a very bad situation, you can say, right?
Yes.
They live in poverty, they've been abused,
Mm-hmm.
sexually, physically.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, you can empathize with these people. You can put yourself in their shoes and see what they're actually going through.
Indeed, you can, Gerardo. That happens actually a lot in society. You're
Because
reading
you're
a book.
reading and you're feeling bad for them, and you're placing yourself in their shoes,
Exactly.
that
Sometimes you'll
essentially,
stumble.
oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
continue.
that essentially increases your empathy, right?
Exactly. Sometimes you'll just be reading a book and you'll notice a character. Huh, that's me. But that's not me. I can relate to what this person's going through, even though they're not real.
Exactly. Like Harry
Yes.
Potter, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Harry's parents were killed, and he's never had a chance to have a proper family. He's also been verbally abused by his uncle and aunt, so he's never truly experienced a proper family.
Yes, indeed.
So some people can emphasize with that.
Indeed, they
Right?
could. Yes. But what also
So,
reading. Oh, sorry, continue.
oh no, you may continue. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. So, also, what reading could do for some people, it can relieve stress. For the people who have a lot on their plate for that day, whether it's work or taking care of things around the house, and they're so caught up in what they're doing and they can't find time to relax, reading can just make you relax, calm you down, and just not worry about those things.
That's correct, actually. Reading can be very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are focusing on one thing, generally that can calm you down, right?
Yes, indeed.
Since you're only focusing on the story or the subject that is being brought up on the book, that will calm you down and thus will relieve your stress.
Yes, for some people, I've used reading as a stress reliever sometimes. If I'm in
Yeah,
school and I have major assignment that's coming up and I'm overly stressed about it, I'll read sometimes. It helps me to calm
yeah.
down.
It's
But
very
also,
effective.
yes, it is. It is effective. But also,
Put on
reading
some
can.
light.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
That's okay.
So just put on some lights. Go find some place comfy, maybe get a drink or something, and read a good book, and that'll probably calm you down quite effectively
It
if you're
will.
into that kind of stuff.
If so, it depends on the person. But
Oh
also,
yeah,
reading, from my experience, it also helps you go to sleep. If you find yourself laying awake at night and you can't fall asleep, reading also helps. I've used reading just last night to fall asleep.
exactly. It calms you down very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
However, I can't say that it calms everyone down. Reading
No, it does
suits
depend on the
doesn't suit
person.
everyone, I can say.
Yes, everybody has
That's
their
one of its
different ways of
cons.
calming down, so just use whatever works for you.
Yes. One of its cons, however, is that it's not stress relieving for everyone. Not everyone likes to read. Some people might find reading boring.
Mm-hmm.
So a good alternative to reading, I would say, is using an audiobook because, well,
Yes.
audiobook allows you to listen and pay attention to the story without having to read it,
It
right?
also it's also useful if you have stuff to do during your day. Going back to that topic, Put on an audiobook in the background instead of some music or television or YouTube videos. Let's say you're doing some
Exactly.
cooking. Put on an audiobook. Listen to it while you cook. They're useful.
Exactly. Right. Books aren't the most interesting. I can understand that some people might find it boring, so I could recommend audiobooks as an alternative for that, I
We
suppose.
definitely could. But also with our generation today, with the internet and video games and technology, our generation seems to get lost in just picking up a book and reading it. Back when our parents were our age, they didn't have access to technology. They had something called the encyclopedia, which is how they got all their information. So
Yes.
why do you think, Gerardo, is that our generation don't read as much?
Well, I'm pretty sure that a good portion of people don't read because they find it tedious or boring.
Mm-hmm.
We now have, well, I could say funner options, you know?
Yeah,
A video
some
game
do.
can be very fun to play, right? Sometimes video games can be very fun in comparison, and I can understand why. Some people prefer sports.
Mm-hmm.
Even in our parents' generation, people were still playing sports. They were playing ball hockey, they were playing soccer, basketball, you
They
know?
were playing more outside than you see our
Yeah,
generation
they were
today.
playing outside. There's plenty of things nowadays that can replace reading when it comes to entertainment, right?
Yes. And which is sad that the most I've ever seen our generation read, especially in school, is when the teacher tells them to read.
Ah,
When you
yes.
have to read a novel in class or answer questions. That's the only time I really see a lot of people reading, and it's
Well, yeah,
sad.
because it's mandatory.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be nice sometimes to see more people read independently, without having to be forced to do it. Because it does
Mm-hmm.
provide benefits, a lot of benefits.
It does. It
You know,
does.
it might not
And
be the most social of activities, which is another con,
yeah,
but
understandable. You
well,
typically don't read in a group most of the time. Sometimes you do.
you can form clubs around it, but generally those clubs revolve around reading the book.
Yeah,
However, you can form groups that can talk and analyze the book together. So there is social aspects to reading as well.
it's
You
true.
know.
It's true. Some people in general, they use reading as a coping mechanism.
Oh yeah, some
To
also use it as coping. Some try
yes.
use it as a form of escapism. You know,
Mm-hmm. Especially with
some use it
fiction
as a
books.
way. Fiction
And
books, yes, the
yes,
use it as a way to escape.
yes. Well, from what I've known, from when I've read fiction books, it's basically taking you to another dimension where you're surrounded by all these characters. It's like you're actually there.
Yes.
And it's a good thing about fiction books that makes you escape the harshness of reality and whatever you're going through.
Yeah, it can be a haven for some people, place of
Mm-hmm.
solace where you can relax and enjoy the book.
Indeed, indeed. And going back to that fun fact I threw in at the beginning of this episode, reading it also puts Alzheimer's and dementia at bay.
Yes, it reduces the chances of getting Alzheimer's. It has been shown that mental activities can reduce the chance of getting Alzheimer's and can even delay the effects of it.
Yes,
So,
2.5 times less likely to actually get it. Which,
exactly.
which for elderly,
Alzheimer's
it's
results in a stagnation of the brain, right?
yes.
So, if you're constantly making your brain work, that kind of reduces the stagnation.
As long as you keep your mind active and you stimulate it with either doing crosswords, Sudoku, reading, for example,
Yes.
you'll
Writing?
yes, indeed, you'll have a less likely chance to get it, or do you put a bay and to pause it and to have some sort of control.
Yes.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for today. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you to Gerardo as well for joining us this week.
No problem. It was a pleasure being here, Chris.
That's good. That's good, Gerardo. So tune in
Yeah.
next week, and hopefully we'll cure your curiosity. Bye, guys.